Skwacha, the DG Ntate Ramasodi, officials of the department, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, Sanibonani, Molweni, Dumelang, good morning and Huemore. I take this opportunity, honorable members, to welcome you all back to this first sitting of the year 2023 of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Honorable members, I trust that you have had a restive time with family and that the batteries are fully charged and ready to work, and none of you are suffering from load shedding, particularly with the Ministry of Electricity coming. I'm certain we will be able to have an effective project manager that will be dealing with these matters. Honorable members, our work in this committee straddles three very critical areas that impact the lives and livelihoods, as well as the well-being of all citizens. Through the work of this committee, we contribute towards creating an enabling environment for government, civil society, business, and other players to address the fundamental needs of our people in terms of alleviating hunger and food security, addressing land hunger and disposition through land reform, restitution, and land justice, and the neglected Cinderella of rural development. Honorable members, over the tenure of this sixth sitting of Parliament, we have had the opportunity to make some significant interventions, as well as provide oversight over key programs of the department. We have been able as a committee to work together across party lines, and when necessary, we have fiercely debated those party lines and divergent positions. Honorable members, we share one common commitment though, and that is for South Africa to address the problems that we are confronted with as a collective, as one nation, and as Parliament. We are merely an instrument to advance that commitment. I trust that as we work through what lies in store for us this year, we shall never lose sight of that commitment to serve the people of the Republic of South Africa. Honorable members, before I introduce the legislation before us, we are aware of the meeting of farmers and farmer formations with the Minister Ubamu Didiza and the department regarding the impact of load shedding and the current energy crisis on the agricultural sector. This is a good intervention, and we would like, therefore, to invite the department and the minister to fully brief us on the meeting, its outcomes, and the way forward. We therefore want to extend an invitation to the Honorable Minister, the DG, and relevant officials to provide the Portfolio Committee with a full report next week, Friday, on the 24th February 2023, and to make a presentation to us on that day on the matter. Finally, honorable members, let's get on with the business of the day. The current institutional, legal, and administrative frameworks governing the development of agricultural land is ineffective in protecting agricultural land for purpose of food production and does not conform to the constitutional requirements. As such, it is of importance to promulgate the Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill into law to proactively protect agricultural land for food production to comply to Section 27, subsection 1B of the Constitution. Allow me, therefore, honorable members, to invite the Honorable Minister Mamutoko Didiza, the DG, and the officials to present to the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. I thank you, Honorable Minister. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Deputy Minister, honorable members and senior officials. As you indicate, Chair, this is our first meeting in this current year. Therefore, would like to wish you well and wish all of us well in the work that we're supposed to do as this sector. The year end and even the beginning of the year, as you said, Chairperson, has really had a serious challenge when it comes to energy security, which has had enormous impact in agriculture and thereby threatening food security, as well as farm incomes. As if that was not enough, we still continue to have a challenge with the European Union in terms of their regulations, which are now not only impacting on the citrus industry, but also is going to threaten other industries such as the beverages, as well as other animal products. We continue to engage with the European Union on this matter.
Recording in progress.
Hoping that we will find a lasting solution that will not have enormous challenge to our farmers. But this has also jogged us to be able to increase our market access and our footprint in other parts of the globe so that we can actually maximize the market opportunities that are there for our farmers. Chairperson, as you rightly say, today we will be briefing you on the preservation of agricultural land legislation, which has been in the pipeline, have gone through various stages, including NEDLAC from our side. The important part of this legislation, Chairperson, is to make sure that as a country, we actually protect our agricultural land as we know that there are competing needs. But at the same time, creating an opportunity where there will be a consultation at an intergovernmental level that would allow us to create a balance where some of the land needs may require rezoning or changing from agricultural use to other uses. So what we will take you through as a committee today is really what are the key principles and the elements of this legislation and why we think it is important that we must be able to promulgate it. It also creates opportunities of other spheres of government on how we can collectively manage agricultural land. Chairperson, without wasting time, I think it is important for me to hand over to the Director General with the team so that they can take us through. I just thought it was important to just give the opening remarks on what is the essence of the legislation. As you know, Chairperson, that we did not have a specific legislation that preserved agricultural land. However, we had been utilizing the Subdivision of Land Act of 1970, which has proven of late to really have some gaps and limitations in enabling us to properly protect particularly high potential agricultural land as we see the pressures from the human settlements, encroaching on agricultural land, particularly in the peri-urban areas. It is in our view that as much as we understand that we'll have to have different land uses, it's still important to protect agricultural land because that is very key in terms of our productive capacity as a country and the possibility of ensuring that we create possibilities of food security in our country and ensure that we fight hunger and poverty. Chair, I will now hand over to the Director General.
Thank you, Mphathiswa. Honorable DG, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. The Minister has already laid ground for the discussions, and welcome to DM Skwatsha. The presentation that we'll take today actually encompasses 7 principles. And these 7 principles will be the bedrock on which we would then articulate the issues around preservation and development of agricultural land against the competing rights. Without wasting any time, Honorable Chair, I would like Mr. Saraka to take the portfolio committee through the presentation that we have prepared for today around the 7 principles and the key areas that we would think would need to be emphasized so as to have a very good legislation that will protect agricultural land. With your permission, Chair, may I call on Mr. Saraka to make the presentation?
Thank you, TG. Dr. Sarake, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Minister, and good morning to Minister, Deputy Minister, and honorable members of this August Portfolio Committee. The presentation, if the Secretariat could allow me to share, or they could present it from their side. And while they're still doing that, I just need to mention that, as DG has already mentioned, the work that we are going to present today is a product of a broader consultation that all those that matter in the sector have been taken through and have made their, I'm still not able to present, so Secretariat, maybe they'll share the rights. But at the moment, I just want to take the comment that we've been through all the processes in the 5th administration.
Sorry, Mr. Sarah.
Yes.
You've got the rights.
Yes. I'm using 2 gadgets because that one doesn't have speaker. Please allow the rights on the first one, Sarah, not this one, not the one that I'm talking from. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Just a sec, my apologies. I just want to get this right. Yes, honorable members, and the process was just one of those that tedious processes, and it has taken us quite some time to get to where we are today. As you know, these are just abbreviations that we will find throughout the presentation. So this, they are basically just to simplify them in this fashion. What the bill seeks to achieve basically is to entrench regulatory measures for the security of high potential agricultural land. At the moment, honorable members, there are only 2 laws in the country that attempts to protect or to regulate agricultural land, and these are not adequate. We have at the moment the Subdivision of Agricultural Land of 1970 and the Conservation of Agricultural Resources of 1983. Now, the Subdivision of Agricultural Land basically is about discouraging or preventing further subdivision of land. This was based on the fact that the science of agricultural production in 1970 was such that the size of land with the known technology at the time had to be regulated by government to ensure that the individual persons do not further divide the land and have it registered. This is no longer sufficient, and this does no longer hold true, because the science of today, 2023, there's been a lot of advances in science and technology, and the size, as in what is the minimum size of a plot or a farm, that science is now under a tremendous challenge, because with technology, the size is no longer a critical measure. Now, this SALA, Subdivision of Agricultural Land of 1970, does not provide for the protection or the delineation of agricultural land. Now, this is where the problem is. So even if you have land that you think is of high value and has got to be preserved, if it is owned by government, the Subdivision of Agricultural Land does not apply. So what this means is private owners of high value agricultural land, what they have been doing, members would recall the current situation with Eskom. They would simply donate the land to government or to municipality, because once it belongs to municipality or to government, then subdivision of agricultural land does not apply, and then they thereafter approach the municipality and say, we want to build a shopping complex here. And with the current legislation, there is nothing that government can do, despite the land being high value, despite that land being next to a wetland. There is nothing that we can do with the current legal remedies. Now, this is one of the reasons why the PDALP had to be thought of and processed. Conservation of agricultural land, Agricultural Resources Act, this is about the preservation of the resources, but not necessarily delineation of high value land. So what it does is basically it says, you shall preserve the land, you shall preserve the water resources, you shall make sure that it do not lead to soil erosion and all that. But it too still does not provide for government to set aside, to identify, delineate, and register land that is of high value and make it agricultural land on which only agricultural activities can take place. So this is where we are. So PDALP, the bill that is before this, the August committee, is in the main about to improve upon the shortcomings of the SALA, subdivision of agricultural land, that was enacted in 1970. So what PDALP does is it then allows the department or government to be able to survey and map all agricultural land in the country, and through scientific means it is able to register such land, and so that whoever intends to do work on that land would already see that this is high value land. So this is going to link up with this registrar, and it will link up with all other resources at the municipality level and everywhere else. The point of that, maybe it's worth mentioning here, honorable members, is that PDALP then corrects the anomaly that I mentioned earlier. Anomaly that if land belongs to government, municipality and government, the SALA, subdivision of agricultural land, does not apply. So the PDALP then corrects that anomaly. It then applies to every land in the country, irrespective of the ownership of the land. So once PDALP is enacted, government would then be able to map the entire land in the country and ensure that the high value agricultural land is so registered, and it provides for a division of the establishment of what is called agro-ecosystem management system. This becomes an online system where everybody in the country is able to see which land is high value, and before they even buy it, they would know what is the potential of that land and what is the value. So it will ensure sustainable development of the agricultural sector and towards maintaining and increasing rural employment, obviously, because then most of the high value land which are found within the municipality's boundaries would then be delineated and registered as such, and therefore it means there would be able to be production and a lot of job creations would therefore then become a spin-off. Like I said, the current institutional and legal administrative framework governing the development of agricultural land is ineffective, like we are saying here. So once PDALP is in place, we would then be able to basically set aside, register it, ensure that it is protected. Maybe I need to also bring this context to honorable members, those who are familiar with the Pretoria East, the Silver Lakes and all those. That area, it's a farm. It used to be high value and high potential agricultural land. But because of the shortcomings of SALA, and also the shortcomings of the relationship between SALA and the cadastral planning, and as well as the municipal the zoning systems and law, that land has, the city has been able to gradually change that land use into residential. And if we allow it to continue as is, you will then have a challenge of having no land to produce food on. So this bill was presented today. Cluster of DGs, everything went well, and the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor has gone through the process and also agrees with us that the coming up with a new law is better. And in fact, had we tried in fact, it was first an attempt to try and improve the shortcomings of the subdivision of agricultural land to avoid coming up with a new law. But the changes and the orientation of the bill, of the new work that has got to be incorporated into SALA, it's so important and so critical that and also voluminous that it actually just warranted a new bill altogether. Hence the PDALP, which I must emphasize, it does not change the principles of SALA in terms of further division of land and all of that. All it does is that it repeals the subdivision of agricultural land, and then it makes sure that the agricultural land, then all the shortcomings of SALA are catered for and are corrected rather. So this bill will then clarify areas of the contention in an attempt to provide interested parties with the opportunity to make oral inputs. At the moment, SALA does not make provision for appeal. So if a company or somebody wants to further divide the land, they apply to the minister through the delegated authority, and we assess, and if we refuse, obviously based on the science, there's no any other appeal remedy or mechanisms. So it then goes to court, and so that leads to cumbersome, tedious court processes of basically going about basic administration. So at the moment, we're sitting with that problem. So once PDALP is enacted into law, it does make provision for appeal processes before it even goes to court. Minister would then set up an appeal board, and the appeal board would preside over the challenges and the contestations, and then a decision will be made. And also very important also is that the bill makes provision for minister to assign, if a need arises, a company or an assignee or any organization that can further perform the functions of government should the need arise. At the moment, we do have capacity. We are doing the assessment. Hence, we've got what we call delineation. If honorable members would have gone through our APP, they would have seen an indicator on delineation of agricultural land. This basically means we survey the land in the agricultural space. We record it as such, and for now, for lack of a legal provision, only recommend for the powers that be they municipality or provincial government, recommend that this land is of high value. It shall not be turned into anything else. But that's as far as we can go. So we do have already, if members would say, but do you have an idea of how many hectares? Yes, we do. In fact, we've got up to just over 1 million hectares of land is under irrigation, and the others are rain-fed. And that it becomes a problem, because in the event of climate change, you are likely to have a problem if the land that is rain-fed is turned into something else. You then have a problem, because as members know, the life expectancy in the country has far increased, and the number of number of hectares, the rain-fed portion is decreasing daily, because owing to climate change and owing to lack of rain, owners of that land are converting it into something else. So the intent and the purposes of this bill is basically to ensure that we protect that land. We make sure that it can only be used for agricultural purposes. Very important point to mention here, honorable members, towards the end, is that the SALA, the PDALP, makes provision for 5-year review. What this means is, so the land shall have been so demarcated as a high-value agricultural land. And over time, things happen, mining prospectors comes and prospect and find minerals, or over time, climate change leads to that land to no longer be profitable. After 5 years, we review, and we then can review the land use and register it for something else. So that is one thing that the BIDAL makes provision for. So it already caters for possibilities of competing needs, like Minister has already said. So that is taken care of. But other than that, the bill before the committee is about preservation of the and development of agricultural land, and it ensures that all the land will be mapped, all the land will be registered, all the land the land that belongs to government would also be presided over by the minister in terms of this act. And then it also further allows the interfacing of the three spheres of our government. It does make provision for the municipal sphere and the provincial sphere of government. It specifically speaks to minister and MECs interacting in the event of priorities and prioritization. What is an example? In the event of let's say, I always like this example of in the Western Cape, because of them being the climatic condition and the agroecological situation there, what would be a hilly land which may not be regarded as high value? In the Western Cape, for instance, that land could be used for vineyards and fruits, so that becomes high value in that context. So the bill takes care of that situation where if minister would not have declared that land profitable and high value in terms of BIDAL, the provincial sphere of government can then approach minister and say, do we need this land, this portion of land, to also be delineated and be protected as such? So it does make that provision. And I thought, in the interest of time, I just summarized this as follows. And thank you very much, DG. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Rache. If you can take off the presentation. DG, Dr. Ramasodi, and the Minister, is that all from the department?
That is all, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, there's the presentation by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. We will now open the session for questions of clarity and comments. Honorable Klabe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to get a good spot for my connection. Chair, I would make comments instead of clarity-seeking questions. One, I think this piece of legislation is very important. Looking at the challenge that we're having, especially in your small towns where informal settlements is taking up agricultural land. And in as much as we're going to preserve, I really don't know, Chair, what could be done in expansion of agricultural land. Land is a problem, yes, we don't have land. But I think with time, we need also to focus on the expansion. We will preserve the ones that we have. It's true that they are competing priorities. And the problem is that they compete even on these ones that we want to preserve. So I don't know if there's any way that we could, with time as government, say we want to expand agricultural land. But in all fairness, I think we should forge ahead with this one and include all stakeholders, especially your municipalities. I have seen, Chair, previously, even from environment, they having this programs where they preserve their own heritage. And I've been wondering, when are we coming as agriculture to make sure that we preserve our own agricultural land? But in all fairness, this should be approved and we should forge ahead and make sure that all stakeholders are included, especially your municipalities, especially your councillors as stakeholders, and make sure that the right thing is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Klape. Honorable Mamum Babama. Ngeba.
Chair.
Yes, Ndate Masipa, you may proceed.
Good morning. Yeah, I just wanted
Before
to say
you proceed, Honorable Ndate Masipa, can we request the person on the video with the kids in the car and to switch off the video and please disconnect, because portfolio committee meetings are for those that are interested in issues of the committee. We would not want to have children on a committee meeting. Thank you. You may proceed, Tate Masipa.
Chair, thank you very much. Good morning to you and to colleagues and the department. Chair, I think let me first, in using this opportunity to also talk about my concern with regards to us as a portfolio committee. I think I did brief you yesterday. I'm sorry that I'm late. I was struggling to get the link to log in. Chair, I think we are faced with two disasters at the moment. The one is the Eskom disaster, and the second one is the vaccine disaster, animal disease disaster. So, Chair, I think it is important that when we finish with discussion of the bill, that we need to relook at our program to really make sure that we do oversight on these issues and that we make sure that we support our agricultural farmers, both small and commercial farmers. That's the point I wanted to make, Chair, and I did discuss with you. I did send you a letter requesting that we do relook at the program and make sure that we invite Eskom and the minister to address us on these issues, and especially the issues of Eskom. On the part of the legislation, I think it is, I agree with Mehlape that it is a very, very important legislation. However, Chair, I think the areas that I think are regulated at the moment are the commercial part. But it is my strong feel that the municipalities as well as communal areas land that are agricultural suitable, that are suitable for agriculture, like your commonage land and so forth, aren't really regulated as such. One, let me just talk about the communal land area. Communal land, obviously, you know, you have got communal grazing. And in this communal grazing, chiefs are the ones that are allocating the land for people to reside. At the moment, what we are seeing an encroachment into communal grazing land, an encroachment into farming land in rural areas where chiefs are allocating land without really taking cognizance of the fact that this land must be used for farming purposes. I think that's one area that I just want the department to kind of address us. And I think the key part, and the reason why I'm raising this is that Mehlape has spoken about the informal settlement. And there is this land invasions that are taking place across the country, and where we are finding that even our law enforcement are not able to manage. But besides that, I think in communal areas, tribal chiefs and the tribal authorities, they also need to just make sure that this area of communal grazing is managed and controlled. The second point, Chair, on the slide that Serage indicated election, this is in line with the election manifesto. It is my concern first that this is an election manifesto, but I think most importantly is that government should have policies that guide it to, when it comes to doing things. Why should this be an election manifesto instead of the department's work of ensuring that its policies are reviewed on an annual basis to ensure that they are aligned properly. Chair, I think that's my part. Let me also just take the platform to indicate that Member Bama did say that she wasn't well yesterday. She couldn't even attend the response to SONA by the president. So she might have not been able to communicate with the staff. Apologies for her. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ndade Masipa. As if you would have been able to join earlier, you would have noted that in my opening remarks, I did request the minister to come before the portfolio committee next week, Friday, to brief the committee in terms of the meeting she and the department held with the farmers regarding load shedding. And with my interaction in particular with Honorable Ntate Matiase, who actually sent a submission regarding this, I did take it upon me and the management committee that we will look into these matters surrounding load shedding that has been affecting the farmers. Your letter that you are talking to only arrived at 26 minutes past 3 yesterday, well after we had taken the decision to invite the minister to present next week Friday. So thank you for the input, but I just needed to clarify that. Honorable Ntate Matiase.
Well, thanks so much, Honorable Chair, and greetings to the Minister, Deputy Minister, and fellow honorable members. Well, thanks for this clarity to the questions of Honorable Masipa, Honorable Chair. It takes us one step forward to dealing with those matters that he has been raising for the last 2 or more so weeks. Well, on the presentation on the preservation of agricultural land, first, Honorable Chair, well, it took the department too long, or perhaps the portfolio committee, to amend the SALA Act, subdivision of Agricultural Act. Why it took so long, I don't know. Maybe the DG and the minister will tell us why. 2, the proposed bill, the preservation of agricultural land, is presented to the committee today without baseline information. By baseline information, what do I mean? I mean, what land is owned by national government? What land is owned by different entities of government? What land is owned by the private sector? Which land is owned by the provinces and municipalities? And if we have to apply extensively across the board the proposed amendment bill, will the bill have jurisdiction even over privately owned land or not? So we have been presented here with a proposed bill, yet we are not being given the details that underpins it, the baseline information. So that the question that Honorable Manshadi has raised and Honorable Masipa were able to clearly have an idea of how the department would navigate and maneuver around those. Land which is under tribal or communal ownership. Land that is currently being occupied around urban areas as informal settlements are sprouting out, growing because people need land for residential purpose. We don't know what the department, together with the department of the one that Honorable Delile is the minister over that land, over that department. We don't know, have they categorized different land for different purposes, for industrial, for residential, for commercial, and all of that? And if this proposed amendment bill is to be applied, has it taken into consideration that there are various land needs and land use that needed to be catered for, and whether this piece of legislation will have jurisdiction over that? So I propose here before you, Chair, that let's have this baseline information and have this discussion continuing until we are fully sure of what we're dealing with here. We should not just have a proposed amendment bill just to tick the boxes and say, for the financial year, so many bills or so many acts have been passed. We need to be thorough and detailed and clear about what we intend doing, so that we simply don't do what I caution against. Thanks, Honorable Chair.
Ntate Matiase, the Honorable Mamutwete.
Thank you, Chairperson. And good morning to everybody in the meeting. As it is our first meeting of the year 2023. I'm actually glad that, Chair, we are starting this year with Ngelingale foot inje, where we want to correct what we've identified, that it's a gap with bills and policy and legislations. Now, Chairperson, I'm actually pleased to learn that Honorable Masipa is reading our manifesto. I'm pleased. This is not an election manifesto. We are amending a bill that will deal with the crisis that we have as a country. I would like to remind the members, Chair, on my when I'm engaging on this bill. Yes, the members are correct to raise certain issues, but let us also remind each other what is at stake and how important this is. Firstly, Chair, we have a crisis of land invasion with agricultural land. Secondly, Chair, we have a crisis of agricultural land that is used for something else, as presented by Ntate Sirong. Now, Chairperson, agriculture as a sector has been identified as one of the key sectors that can change the economy of the country, and in terms of unemployment, if things can be drastically changed and be prioritized and looked at. This bill, Chair, seeks to address that. We are talking about e-commercialization on certain aspects of agriculture, but we don't have land, agricultural land, to start and do all those things. So, Chairman, I agree with the fact that this land, we need to approve this land, this bill, as a matter of agency, Chair, so that it can be implemented soon. The DG must also follow up with all other bills that have been submitted for your approvals, and those that have been outstanding that we raised as a committee that they need to be prioritized. Last point, Chair, that I want to raise in the committee. Yes, it was not part of the presentation, but was raised by Honorable Masipa. I would like to plead with the minister, as much as she already shared with us what are the challenges with the EU. Can we intensify those talks so that our farmers are not suffering more than they are suffering? There is a great loss, a massive loss, Chair, with citrus industry. Our farmers at Sundays River Yaka, millions and millions of friends they are losing because their product is being returned or it's just Can we do something to assist them in that industry, Chair? Thank you, Chair. I agree that the bill must be amended. Yes, I would like that we get finished with the information that how many hectares of land are we talking about of agricultural land, so that we can further have our own estimates in terms of contribution to other sectors and other things that are impacting in our industry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mamutwete. The Honorable Ndabezitha Nkosenkulu. Bawucebe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to Honorable Minister and Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee and support staff. Chairperson, I think the first two honorable members have said it all from my side, more especially when Honorable Masipa was talking about the communal land. You know, the biggest challenge which has been faced by our communities out there is that of you know, people simply occupying land which was designated for agriculture simply because they want to build their homesteads in suitable areas. Remember, Chair, the people from communal areas are residing in very ugly places, mountainous mostly, where people feel after having achieved what we could refer to as our rights to reside where we would want to. No, people have been allocated plowing fields in the suitable areas and the residential on the mountainous areas. Now, because they are not happy with where they were sort of pushed to by the apartheid, so now they are flocking down to suitable flat areas, which is, according to my understanding, is suitable for agriculture. One is happy that the department has just decided to look into this challenge. This has been a challenge for quite a long time, which has been raised at times in the committee, that we are seeing residential development occupying suitable agricultural land, which has resulted in most people even losing their jobs because they were employed in the agricultural sector. But all in all, Chairperson, I want to thank the committee, the department for moving this step, taking this step forward in order to preserve land for agriculture. I hope they will as well look into the challenge we are faced with in rural areas where people now do as they wish. You know, as people have been allocated land for plowing as well as land for residential, these days it's not only traditional leaders who allocate land for residential. People simply take advantage of the fact that they have right to those plots or those fields for plowing because it's under their name. So they simply go and occupy, which squeezes the grazing as well as the plowing fields for the communities. But all in all, Chairperson, thanks for the presentation from the department. Thank you.
Indaba ezitha sibamba ngazo zimbini inkosi enkulu. The Honorable Bauchapa Mthembu.
Yabulela, Nkosi Sihlalo. Let me join my colleagues in accepting and appreciating their presentations, especially that demonstrate that the bill has been overdue for quite a long time. And it is clear that it is absolutely necessary. But still we need some clarities, just a few clarities, especially if maybe some of these I missed in the presentation. One is the one that was raised by Honorable Masipa, but I would like to emphasize that this part where the land is being allocated by traditional leaders or sometimes being grabbed, whereas that land is known to be agricultural land and used for something else, a special building and building houses. This is a very, very common tendency, which is dangerous because it affects the real potential land. If you remember around Mthatha there, you know that there's good grazing land that has been occupied in the way that you can understand what people were thinking, where people were grazing their sheep. This is one example. So these are the things I would like maybe that the bill clarifies and how to prevent this definitely, because sometimes it's the traditional leaders, sometimes it's just some people who just grab, which has to be stopped. And secondly, we also have another situation where the landowners who own the farms themselves, they decide to think of bigger money or quick money and want to sell their land to maybe to the municipalities or to the cities, which actually we understand as to be prime agricultural land. But since the other client wants the land and they want the money, how do we prevent such an happening that land will definitely now be lost, whereas we need a lot of land, we need enough land for food production. And now there's another thing that maybe that one is not much important, but there are terms like GAF, which appear because the bill started some time ago. I don't know whether they're in the process of the bill, they are going to be changed and be used, and the current name of the department be used to be relevant. I would also ask to understand the part of forests. I have this question because I once had a fight with people of forest when I was arguing for land for food production. Their argument was that forests are also agriculture. They need good land. And he was secondly making another naughty argument that when you have forests, there will be labor, there will be people be working, they will buy food. I didn't like that such argument. But now, in this case, what do we understand now? Because there are forests, there's also agricultural production on this land. Do we have to determine which land can be used for food production, or is it the same like forests? Lastly, I would like now to understand from the department if there's any database information that has been there in the department, even in provincial departments, even in Bantustan governments, that information that makes it known that there is this much of land, especially based on researches like ARC, because what I know is that ARC in their researches, they can know that in any place of South Africa, this can be produced and so on. Does that information exist that can be used in this process? I thank you, Chair.
Siyabulela Mvelase. The Honorable Ntate Montwedi.
Ke lebogela tšhono modulasetilo madume go wena le botlhe ba ba tsenetseng kopano. Chairperson, the DG in the opening remarks mentioned that preservation of agricultural land versus competing rights. And maybe the DG can just explain what are some of those competing rights that is actually referring to. But from my side, there's one competing rights that I know that I think at all material times, we must make sure that we actually protect that competing rights against preservation of agricultural land rights. And I do not agree with people that say members of our community do as they wish, because land hunger is a reality in South Africa. And if people need land for human settlement, why should people go around saying that people do as they wish, people are invading? People must have their own a space where they live and the like. So I don't actually agree with some of those things. So people need land and they need land, Chairperson. Now, I'm also worried with the role played by traditional leaders to as far as making sure that preservation of land rights happens. I'm worried how are they empowered in terms of making sure that they assist the department with regard to preserving agricultural land right. Now, the other thing, Chair, is that as part of being proactive on the side of the department, the Department mentioned the 5-year reviews that they do take. I want to find out from Tate Saraje, why are they not doing those reviews? Because some of the land that is currently preserved as agricultural land are lands that are near already established settlement, where people need to go and expand the settlement because they would still need stands where people can go. Why are they not being proactive and review such lands so that they make way for a human settlement in those areas? And as Metlap has said, to say, government can go and still expand agricultural land because most of South Africa's land remains arable land. But why are they not proactive in terms of dealing with those things? Because if they are proactive, they will actually appreciate that our communities are growing. There's a need for human settlement. Therefore, land nearer a settlement that could be an alternative land for people to settle is actually people are allowed to settle up there instead of them doing it as if they're setting up our people for failure. Now, the other question maybe, Chair, I'm not sure if, but I think it may be relevant that the department is selectively speaking of preservation of agricultural land. You have thousands and thousands of hectares that is sitting with a department that knows nothing about agriculture, where farms are sitting with Department of Public Works. Why has the department actually not, when will that minister be transferred to you so that as you expand from lands that are declared agricultural land close to already established settlements, at least you have an option of going to other farms which can actually be used to expand the agricultural productivity in there. When are we likely going to see something like that, Minister? And then last two things from my side, Chair, is that there's an issue that in 1998 subdivision of Agricultural Land Act, when it was repealed, but the commencement date was not promulgated. And I want to know what are the reasons for the commencement date not being promulgated there? And can one maybe conclude that there may be a link between this bill and the reason for not issuing the commencement date of the repeal of SALA? Can one actually conclude like that? Lastly, Chair, is that are there any linkages with SPLUMA? SPLUMA mostly talked about and other municipal planning laws. Are there any linkages between SPLUMA and other municipal laws, Chair? But other than that, our people are not invading land. There's land hunger, and land hunger must be addressed, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ntate Muntwedi. The Honorable Memasho.
Chairperson, Chairperson, good morning, and good morning also to our minister, including our DPs if they are present, our officials, led by Ntate Ramasodi, our DG, my colleagues, good morning to all of you. Chairperson, my input will be in support to the input made by Honorable Hlape, including Honorable Chair, that must indeed support the passing of that legislation, and as a matter of agency, to allow the implementers of the laws to run smoothly in providing the services delivery to our people with regard to land matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Memasho. Honorable members, are there any other honorable members who have not recognized but may wish to pose a question? Anyone else on the platform who may wish to pose a question? If not, honorable members, I have just maybe one or two questions of clarity on the presentation put. But before engaging on that, I'd want to gain an understanding, particularly with reference of Mpumalanga, where we have received numerous calls from landowners and communities that are affected by the numerous mining licenses that have been put and given out in affecting agricultural land. How is the department dealing with this and looking to curb the overwhelming of licensing, mining licenses that are given in Mpumalanga region, but also with reference to other provinces? Because it seems we are seeing a lot of agricultural land being taken away for mining licenses. Secondly, honorable members, on the presentation that has been put to the committee, and considering that the implementation of the legislation will involve not only the department at the national level, but municipalities as well as provinces. Are these spheres of government fully aware of the financial implications and resources that will be needed for its implementation? Do they have the technical expertise and capacity that will be required to effectively implement the bill? Secondly, honorable members, I'd like to ascertain from the department, as it is estimated that the implementation of the bill will cost approximately about 68 million rands. Considering that consultation on the bill was done in 2015 and the socio-economic impact assessment was approved in 2020, is the 68 million rands figure still applicable? and have the funds been secured for such work? Further, does the amount include the other spheres of government that will be involved in the implementation of the legislation? That is all on my side, honorable members. We will hand back to the Honorable Minister Mahmoud Didiza, the Deputy Minister Ubao Skwacha, as well as the DG, Tate Ramasodi, and the officials of the department. You may proceed with the responses.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will ask the team to come in first, and myself and Deputy Minister will come after.
Thank you, Mpatis.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Allow me to sequentially deal with the issues, starting from the director who's responsible for this act, Mebo Soha. She will be followed by the chief director who's also responsible for this unit, Mechipeta, and then Tadesrache. Then I'll follow up in terms of the other issues before handing over to Minister Yus, your permission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gigi. Good morning. Starting with the first question, in relation to informal settlement, what is the bill saying about that? I think the bill does relate to protection of agricultural land and preservation of agricultural land. So where there is agricultural land and there is need for expansion, what the bill says is there would be intergovernmental engagement between the municipality and the province, and we then allocate land which is closer to the people, and that land then the municipality will be able to expand their urban edge on that land. But what we also do with that expanded land, there is also measures such as that are applicable in the Conservation of Agricultural Resources Act, that that land then needs to be managed. If there are any urban agriculture activities, then that will form part of that consideration. So we have, as part of the zoning, which the Spatial Development Expluma gives a provision for municipality to be able to zone agricultural land, to zone land in different uses. For instance, when the municipality are zoning the land, they will zone the land which is with agriculture. There will be zoning of land which is industrial. There will be zoning of land which is other uses, housing, for instance. So how we manage that collaboration or that working is that where there is high value agricultural land, such land, we are able to communicate the measures such as agro-ecosystem management, which are being provided in this PDALB, so that these measures then they can guide the municipality on how to optimally using that land. So with the agro-ecosystem management, there will be sharing of that information of the capability of that land and the potential, such that when they are putting houses, there are information which is guiding them that the overall agro-ecosystem is not affected, and there may be then unintended consequence of flooding of those people who are staying there. So the other input in relation to Honorable Masipa around whether areas of communal areas are being regulated. Currently, we are not able to regulate the communal area because such is a part of the state land. But with this PDALB, if it's approved, then we will be able to demarcate those already existing grazing area, share information in terms of the suitability of those areas, and be able to create awareness and engage such that those areas, if there is any investor in those areas, then he can be able to support knowing the potential and the capability and suitability of crops which may be utilized in that area. So it will benefit the communal area if this bill is being approved, in the sense that currently most of the communal area, they are not aware of the potential and value of the land in terms of the capability of those grazing or cultivated lands. So there is that consideration in the bill that they are protected agriculture area and then they can be then demarcated. In relation to encouraging people residing closer to where they are staying, I think it is, we have already indicated that if there is land that is already encroached and fragmented, that land then can be agreeable as with the municipality over engagement, and such area then they can be added within the urban edge as land that can be utilized for housing, provided that will not have an unintended consequence of flooding of housing. In relation to information around the election manifesto, we have looked at what we are expected to do as the department, and as part of the department, we are also supposed to create enabling environment for growth of the sector. So the bill relates to agricultural sector plan. So this agricultural sector plan are going to help us to know where are we investing and also where are we growing agriculture. So when we demarcate high potential agricultural land and the suitability, with some of the grants that we are having, we'll be able to invest in those areas and progressively be able to, after 5 years, as indicated when we review, see how the sector has been growing in those spaces that we have protected as agricultural area. Why the bill took so long? I think what happened is that we had a intense engagement, especially at NEDLAC, where there has been a number of interests. And for that, I think there has been a continuous engagement so that we all see a balanced approach of utilizing land as a collective and for the benefit of the overall citizens. So in relation to people taking advantage of utilizing the land, I think what we do under normal circumstances, we are creating awareness, we are sharing this information that this is high value agricultural land. The challenge is that we do not have the regulatory mechanism to say if people continue to abuse the land, then what are the enforcement measures that we can put in place. But at this stage, we share the data. We do have the atlas, which shows the capability of land across the country. It shows areas which are available for irrigation, areas which are available for sugarcane, for instance. And in those areas, then we communicate the potential of the land. But with this PDALP, it will be able to give us the teeth in terms of dealing with those who are not seeing the use of agricultural land in a positive light. In relation to competing rights, I think what we are dealing with by Honorable Muthusi, what we are doing is that we do acknowledge that there are competing rights and there is land that is demarcated for agriculture. So this bill is mainly focusing on the land that is demarcated for agriculture, informed by the overall planning of SPLUMA, where other uses have been demarcated. The challenge that we had with the 1998 bill, it was that we didn't have this existing mechanism that we are having now. For instance, the mechanism of agro-ecosystem management, the mechanism of protected agricultural area, and the dealing of this concurrent functions with the MECs and the minister from the national side. So hence, it took us. time so that we can bring something on the table that will be able to comprehend the overall situation of need for agricultural land in the country for food security, but also accommodate other needs. Thank you, DG, and thank you.
Thank you, Mebosoha. Thank you, DG. I think Mebosoha has covered most area, and I will therefore submit.
Thank you very much, DG and honorable members. Yes, Mebosoha covered most of the silent issues, but I'll, however, just strengthen and emphasize some areas which I think she may have gone through quickly. The question from Honorable Tlape about expansion, I think it's very important for us to spend some time on that one. The current land that we have now, we've got just over 12,000 hectares rain-fed and just over 1 million hectares irrigation. With climate change and everything else, realistically speaking, we may not be able to feed the nation with over time. So the intention should be for us, and we take that to it, to ensure that we expand. And what are the measures? Some of the measures they could be land that, with the science that was in place and applicable 10 years, 20 years back, changing into the science of today, we may be able to find some of the land that may have been classified unproductive to get it to be productive. So that's part of the assessment that we'll be making. And also some of the land that was used for mining and that can be rehabilitated. But we agree, Honorable Tlape and members, that the government has to make a conscious effort of ensuring that we expand agricultural land. In fact, it's very skewed as things stand, that we have got very little land available for food production. And should we have, like we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, borders closing, some of the supplement food that comes in the form of import might be locked out of the country, and we may struggle. So we are taking that to heed, Honorable Tlape, and we'll make sure that proactively also using the PDALP bill, and hoping it gets enacted sooner, it will allow us to survey any land, and once we find it productive, and delineate and lock it or regulate it, or make sure that it's registered as a high-value agricultural land. The next matter was, I think most honorable members spoke about it. Honorable Kapa also spending some time, Honorable Matthias also, and Honorable Masipa. This is the matter about the communal land that is being changed into this land grab, and land that used to be known as the prime agricultural land is now changing into something else. And as people who have stayed in those areas, we know that some years back, beautiful crops used to come out of this land. And we see it changing and nothing is happening. Government is not doing anything. Now, this is part of what I mentioned as the problem statement when we started, my honorable members, that current SALA, subdivision of agricultural land, does not apply to land that is in the hands of government meaning municipalities and traditional authorities and basically provincial government. So what happens then is the people know that if land is privately owned, you may not subdivide it or change its use. But when they want to come up with a mall or a shopping mall or whatever business, they would then first donate their privately owned land to municipalities or to provincial government. Once that land is donated, even if it was a farm, automatically and technically, it means SALA ceases to apply. They then can change it and then change the use of that land into anything else. Hence, this is the crux of our problem statement. We need to have PDALP enacted into law, which once that's done, every land, and also I'm touching on the question by Honorable Matthias and Honorable specifically about and also Honorable Masip about the privately owned land. Yes, the answer is yes. PDALP covers every land. The Mebuswa spoke of the atlas. All the land that has so far been surveyed and is mapped, irrespective of who owns that land, all that land will be regulated and registered as if, for as long as it's been found to be high value agricultural land. So even if we're talking of, there's a talk in the country of commercial animation, even if the land owns to a big commercial farmer, once that land has been mapped and classified as high value agricultural land in terms of PIDAL, that owner cannot change that land into anything else. It has to become land for agricultural purposes. So it cuts across. I thought I should just emphasize that one. And also, this also Honorable Kabikulo also spoke about that housing development encroaching onto agricultural land. Yes, we need PIDAL as a legal instrument to be able to regulate that. And as well, in fact, it will go as far as regulating every land, be it under traditional authority, for as long as that land is found to be high value agricultural land, is found to be a productive land. And as science evolves, also going back to the question of my Honorable Clark, as science evolves, there may be a lot of land that happens, and as there may be science that show us that we may use some land that we may not have been using before for agricultural purposes. And as soon as that happens, we will then declare that land to be a prime agricultural land. Honorable Montoedi, the question of the 5-year review, we need PIDAL to be able to do that. I agree, Honorable, we should be able to check and whether the land that is closer to the settlement and the competing rights, as and when the need arises and we think the land is no longer profitable, we review. With the current legislation, current laws in terms of Conservation of Agricultural Resources Act of 1983 and Subdivision of Agricultural Land of 1970, we do those. The two laws do not allow us, do not give us a legal instrument to do this review. So this review, which is very critical for PIDAL, it will help us if PIDAL is assented into law, wherein every 5 years we will assess and check whether the land that is being encroached or whether this land has been encroached to such an extent that we can no longer use it, or we may engage with the traditional and municipal and provincial authorities and collaborate and engage and come up with a solution. So that review at the moment, Honorable Montoedi, we cannot do it. We do not have legal instruments to enforce that, but it is entrenched and it is part of the PIDAL. And once that's done, we will be able to, once PIDAL is enacted into law, we'll be able to do the review. Honorable Nkosi Mandela, the mining licenses that are granted at the moment, again, is the same situation. They can never be, and we've got a few court cases. If land is registered, a land portion is registered in terms of, if a land portion is registered in terms of SALA, that land may not be used for anything else and may not be changed into anything else. Now, what happens, and I may not have the details of the Mpumalanga situation that the Honorable Chairperson referred to, we will look into it and provide feedback. But if such land belongs to, is registered in terms of SALA, it may not be used for anything else. But what happens, and which I suspect is what could have happened in this case, is that land that belonged to private individuals might have been donated to government, any sphere of government. Once that happens, SALA is no longer applicable, then land change of land use happens. So I suspect it could be one of those situations. We're sitting with, one of the members know of the situation of Eskom. Eskom owns land, again, part of Mpumalanga. We're sitting with those files, and Eskom wants to donate that land or lease it back to private individual, to government. So that discussion is happening. We are discouraging situations like those because we realize that that is one of the ways of bypassing the current regulatory framework. And we hope we will have the PIDAL enacted sooner. We'll then be able to cap the situation. And Honorable Mandela also about the 68 million at the time, and now obviously time value of money that figure, we have not computed it yet, but that figure obviously is slightly increased. Do we have the budget? Yes, we should have. We do have allocations, and in our allocation, we do have some budget in our allocation to be able to enforce PDALF once it's enacted into law. In fact, PDALF also does make provision in the unlikely event of us not being able to afford the implementation. PDALF, the bill does make provision for minister to designate private, whether juristic person or natural person, to assist government in furtherance of the work of government. So that can still be done. So that instrument is specifically located in the Act to counter, to basically proactively deal with a situation where we may not be able to have capacity to perform certain provisions of this Act. Will this, again, Honorable Mandela, will this amount be also extended, the 68 million, or the budget? Is it also catering for other spheres of government? Answer is no. But obviously, once it becomes a law, provincial departments have got a role to play. So closer to time, they will be made aware of their role, and they'll have the budget for it. But how the scene is set, it is in the fashion that the 68 billion is basically, which obviously would have now increased to maybe, we don't have the figures, but obviously with time, bill of money is increased. This is only for us as national department going about implementation of the bill or the Act, the bill once it's enacted. And obviously the bill allows us to cut across the entire country. So we will still perform functions in furtherance of provisions of this bill anywhere in the country. And I think I covered most of this in the interest of time. The question about SPLUMA, the differences, SPLUMA that has been catered for by Mebusuha. This, honorable members, maybe I should just reiterate, this bill is only about agricultural land. So once the zoning happened, after the zoning happened, like Municipal A having zoned the land as for agricultural purposes, that then becomes under our purview and then it falls under our regulation immediately after the rezoning, and it cannot be changed for anything else. So then the matter of where the encroachment and where you would see that probably this was agricultural land, it belongs to municipality, encroachment happens is as a result of the things I've mentioned. I'm going too fast in order not to waste our members' time. I know DG would have probably covered the part that I would have missed. Over to you, DG. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Ntate Serage, Minister, Deputy Minister, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the committee. I think my colleagues have done a lot of justice to the questions that were asked. I just think that the issue that I need to settle on is the issue that was raised by Honorable Hlape, which is really the objective of this PDALF, to say instead of land being classified as currently in terms of SALA, where there is an exclusion of 5 critical areas, and these critical areas include communal land, they include land owned by municipalities, they also include the issue that was raised by Honorable Matthias, some of the urban edges that we are having. So we need to say the classification of land, of agricultural land, should be based on the land capability. And as you use it, then you can use it towards productivity and bring that land in terms of engagement, so that if we have got to deal with any other issue around this land, it can be a matter of intergovernmental relations on how do we then bring that land into agriculture. I think that's the shortcoming around the Subdivision of Agricultural Land Act, because of the exclusions, and those exclusions are not based on land capabilities, but are based on ownership or location of this land, which perpetuates the way that land has been held in the past in our country. Honorable Matthias says that do we have land kind of audits that we have done? Do we know where land is? I think the answer lies in the issue that we are talking about, agricultural land. And with the 5 exclusions that I've just referred to, agricultural land would be really captured in terms of the 2 land audits that were done. The latest one being the 2017 land audit, which was publicized, I think, around February of 2018. So we know which kind of land do we have, but we need to expand on the land. And that is where we are going to be concentrating and dealing with the issue around agricultural land. On the issues around whether we have got capability maps, as asked by Honorable Kapa, yes, we have. Right through our research institute, the ERC, we have got that. Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, we will hand over to Honorable Minister and GM.
Thank you very much, DGDM.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thanks to the chair of the Portfolio Committee. I am of the opinion that the matters raised have been sufficiently canvassed. I think that the matter raised by Honorable Hlape on the expansion of agricultural land is quite necessary and opportune in relation to many issues, and in particular food security. The other issues, Chair, I think the colleagues have responded to them. In relation to what Honorable Mtwenty has sharply raised vis-a-vis land hunger, I am fully with Honorable Mtwenty, and I think that this government agrees with him that in order for us to address the situation in our country, there has to be equitable redistribution of land. The point that we would like to emphasize is everything must be done through the prescripts of the law. And therefore, we're not in a position at all to support illegal land invasions. I think systematically the department is trying to be busy with a mammoth task of making sure that land is addressed to the benefit of all the people of our country. Thank you very much, Chair. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for the response, as well as the senior officials. Chairperson, we've tried to respond to the questions for clarity that has been raised, and we've noted some of the proposals that are being made by committee members. I just want to also indicate, Chair, that in terms of the request that Honorable Matiase was raising, that detail is available in a variety of documents. One of that being the 2017 land audit. It does have the categorization, but also, as the team was saying, that there is a land atlas which indicates where agricultural land is. Obviously, we're trying to make sure that this legislation works, take into consideration the responsibility of various spheres of government. The members have also asked, wondering why it has taken such a long time, precisely because of the nature of the bill. We needed to consult as wide as is possible and take into consideration some of the concerns that were raised by other stakeholders within government, but also outside government. Chairperson, on the matters that have also been raised about the land hunger, which Deputy Minister has responded to, I do want to say, however, the issue of land invasion is a reality in our country. We cannot deny that. And at times it's not driven by land hunger per se. I mean, we had been engaging with Nkosi Moroka in the Free State, where some people who had erected shacks there admitted that they are from Tshwane, some of them Mabopane, and they have heard that there is land available, so they decided to go and put up their shacks. So it wasn't necessarily the issue of land hunger. And I think it's important in our country that we do address the issue of illegal land invasion because it distorts development. Yes, we must address the issue of land hunger in terms of our program of land redistribution, But at the same time, we need to make sure that we do have planned settlements, because if we allow a sprawl, both in urban and in our rural areas, the issues of services becomes another challenge on how you actually plan proper human settlements with services that are required. So I just want to say that that matter is a matter that we need to address. Chairperson, you have also raised an important issue about financing. We will have to relook at whether that 68 million is still relevant today, given the rise in costs. And we'll be able to revise that and come back to you. I've also noted the other matters, and through you, Chair, will be guided by you, that were raised by Honorable Masipa. On one of them, you have responded on the energy issue. On the other issue of vaccine, I think we'll be guided by you on how we move forward on those ones. But I would like to say thank you very much, Chairperson, and the members for your attention in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Mahmoud Deza and the Deputy Minister Bao Skwacha, the DG Ntate Ramasodi, and officials of the department for your responses. Honorable members, are there any follow-up questions?
Chairman,
I note the hand of Honorable Ntate Masipa. Any other hands, honorable members, on follow-up questions?
Yes, Montwedi, Chair.
Honorable Montwedi will follow. Any other follow-up question? I've noted only those two honorable members. You may proceed, Honorable Ntate Masipa.
Chair, thank you very much, and thanks to the Minister and the officials and Deputy Minister for the response. Let me just also agree with Ntate Skwacha that, you know, we are a country that is governed by law. And despite, you know, the people having the challenges of land hunger, which we agree that there is some challenges, but we have to follow the prescript of the law. We are the lawmakers, and we cannot be seen to be encouraging the unlawful occupations of land as lawmakers. So I just want to agree with Ntate Skwacha in that regard, that it is important that as lawmakers, we should be setting a proper example. With regards to the exclusionary exclusions that are in this particular bill, let me put it this way. I feel it's a bit problematic, Chair, and I think the big question for me is that obviously, you know, I said that this bill initially that is gonna, you know, be more applicable towards the commercial sector more than the communal land areas. The question is, when is the department really envisaging doing the proper land survey in order to just make sure that, you know, communal farmers and guys that are in communal grazing land are really protected? I'm saying this because this is a painful part of, you know, smallholder farmers in the rural areas, you know, to say that, you know, we have got a problem. The chiefs are really just giving land willy-nilly and encroaching in our grazing land, and we don't have grazing land or grazing capacity. And the other problem that I have got is that this is obviously, you know, we're going through a piecemeal approach, you know, because we should have really, in fairness, we should have really taken this, you know, these issues of communal area or the land owned by the state with capacity to grazing, you know, to address it immediately there and then, because then it will really be helping us to solve some of the land reform issue, and especially really on agricultural side. Just the last question, Chair, is that I know that there is a High Court judgment from Gauteng with regards to this particular bill, that it was really, the minister was asked to bring the bill to an act to ensure that the bill is passed during this particular term. Is there a date envisaged that the minister has got set in mind in terms of when this bill will be enacted? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ntate Masipa. Honorable Ntate Montwedi.
Ke a leboga gape tšhono yo mphileng yone modulasetulo. Chair, I just want to make a follow-up, especially on something that you raised around the areas of Mpumalanga, and I want to link it to this so-called land invasion that members would be talking about, Chair. Is the department aware that the greatest land invasion is actually being done by the Department of Minerals and Energy? I can cite 2 farms that I know in the Northwest where Minerals and Energy has issued mining permits in those farms, departmental farms, farms that are meant for agricultural, farms that through your different programs, Minister, you have actually given them to be farmed by certain farmers there. But the mineral resource issues permits for mining purposes, even without consulting the department, including some of those people. They just find, big equipment in their farms there, mining for mining purposes, either for diamond or any other thing that they could actually be doing. Now, I want to check, Minister, to say, how relevant is then this preservation of agricultural land bill in dealing with such incidents? I can cite 2 examples of one farm in Amalia, around the areas of Amalia in Swaziland, where the minerals has issued such a permit there. I just want clarity with regard to how does the amendment actually intend dealing with such reality that is actually taking place where minerals is issuing permit in farms.
Thank you, Honorable Ntate Montwedi. Honorable members, those were the only 2 hands I noted in terms of follow-up questions. Is there any further follow-up questions? If not, I'll hand back to the department through the minister. Mahmoud Didiza.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will give to the DG and then I'll come back and answer the specific questions that had been raised on the time frame following the court case, as well as the issues that are being raised by Honorable Montwedi.
Thank you, DG. Dr. Ramasodi.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And let me also declare that my dress code today is informed by what we have been instructed to do as DGs to promote Netball Fridays, and it's no sign in terms of me being disrespectful to the committee.
Amanda, DG, thank you.
Honorable Masipa, I think you are correct in terms of your own analysis of how do we deal with the issues around bringing communal land into the fortitude of this act that we are talking about. And that is exactly what the act is trying to do, because one of the things that we have is that in order for you to take action, you must be enabled by legislation. And at this moment, the enabling legislation, which would be the SALA Act, Subdivision of Agricultural Land Act, excludes communal land. While we know that in communal areas, there's a lot of agriculture taking place. So by definition, if you have got to connect it with what Honorable Tape was asking, if you bring communal land into agricultural land based on capability, then you're expanding agricultural land, and therefore you can be able to then deal with the issues around land in a more comprehensive way instead of dealing with it in piecemeals at the moment. Because at the moment, the way that we deal with it is based on the current act, and it's based on PTOs that can be given by the traditional authorities or the chiefs in this case. and therefore not in line with Agricultural Act. So once we have that, and there is an agreement that we can then deal with this land in that way, we will be then able to determine certain portions of those lands as agricultural land and therefore protected by PDAP and therefore being part and parcel of the new act. Without that, there is that level of acting outside any provision of an act, and therefore government would be liable to be sued if anything is to be looked at. So that's what this act is trying to remedy, to just look at land capabilities and how do we deal with these issues. And I agree with you, it can even broadly deal with the issue around land reform and how do we deal with these issues in communal areas. There is a question around the mining and agriculture. And I think, Honorable Mtwedi, the first question that you asked was for us to indicate what are the competing rights that we would have on any piece of land. And mining is one of those. And you would also see that part of the agricultural sector's positioning is how do we manage this issue around mining rights so that you don't wake up the next day in a farm that has been used to say that, but we have issued mining rights on those areas. As you would know that mining rights would be issued elsewhere. Minister Didiza, before this bill went to PDAP, had engagements with the Minister of Minerals and Energy, with a clear view to say that there are areas where these two departments have got to converge and say, we have got to protect. Because these days, what is even more worrying is that there is a lot of surface mining that we see instead of underground mining, which therefore means that there would be only one area that would be done. It would be mining over a period of time. Whether we would be able to reclaim those lands would be a question after the mining has been done. So there's that kind of engagement with the ministers to say ultimately, whether we have got mining or we have got agriculture, how do the two coexist instead of them being competing on land that we have South Africa, and taking into consideration that land is a finite resource that we have got to protect. I think it's also prudent on a broader context to look at the issues of land and the various legislative pieces that we have around land, so that the discussion is also refocused to say, the subdivision of agricultural land and PDAP would not be the only acts that are there that regulate land, but they are only dealing with agricultural land, and there are various other legislative pieces that would deal with other areas of land. Maybe in terms of our presentation that we would need to make is to say the interaction and the interrelationship that the various acts would have with this PDAP to the portfolio committee. Thank you very much, Honorable DM, Minister, and the August portfolio committee. I'll hand over to DM and Minister.
DM?
Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, DM, and thanks, Chairperson. Just to respond on the issue that was raised by Honorable Noko in terms of the time frame, we would love to actually have this legislation promulgated into law by mid-year, which is June. Obviously, it depends on the lawmakers, which is you, honorable members, to really do what is necessary to make sure that the legislation becomes law. So I would really not be able to say with certainty in June, because you will have to take the normal processes as the committee, but from where we sit, we would love to have this bill being law before the end of the year. Preferably mid-year, but before the end of the year, would really appreciate that because of the agency that is there. On the issue raised by Honorable Mtwedi, I just want to go back a little bit because I think DG has answered it. However, it's important for us to remember that in terms of surface land, that's what we deal with in terms of agricultural allocation or preservation. But mineral rights, as they were before, are held by the state under the Minister of Minerals and Energy. And when we converted the old regime of mineral rights to mining licenses, there was a transition period that allowed those who had the rights to utilize them or lose it. And that's why we saw immediately in the areas of Mpumalanga, where you found that some of the farmers had actually dual rights, both in terms of agricultural land on the surface as well as mineral rights, that most of them decided to convert agricultural land and exploit it into mining. In part, it was in response to that we felt that the subdivision of land at 70 of 70 was not adequate enough to actually address the issues of preserving agricultural land. It's partly the reasons why we've made sure that there is an intergovernmental process accommodated in the bill, which will allow all departments that will be affected to actually consult before one would do what might have a negative consequence in the sphere of another department or even in the sphere of another government. That will enable us to make sure that in looking at some of the needs, we can then look at what is the balance that we must strike. Similarly, on the issue that Honorable Montwedi is raising about the farms in the Northwest that he's specifically relating to, which are state land, there's nothing actually that prevents the minerals department, minerals and energy department rather, to issue a license in land that is even owned by the state. So what we are trying to do is precisely to correct that, not only in respect of state land, but also on other lands that in our view is agricultural and will be disappearing if we were to just allow for mining rights or any other land uses without having a discussion and agreeing on what is the best way in managing the said land parcel. With the issue that was raised by Honorable Noko on maybe the need for us as a department to be proactive in terms of surveying and ensuring that we are able, particularly in communal land, to preserve the land that's for grazing and for fields so that there is no encroachment. We take that proposal and we will work with our Directorate on Spluma and engage the traditional leaders nationally, but also in the various houses, following what we did last year through Deputy Minister Skwatsha and Deputy Minister of Culture and Justice, engaging communal lands through their leaders and communities. And I think this will require the same impetus to make sure that there is an appreciation from our traditional leaders about the preservation of agricultural land, even in the spaces where they are. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable members, I've afforded everyone opportunity for follow-up questions, and think we've exhausted the matter. If any other members do still feel strongly on putting questions, you can write to the committee. We will make sure those questions are sent to the ministry and then be able to have an opportunity for written responses. I'd like to therefore take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister, as well as Deputy Minister and the DG and the officials of the department for having been able to take us through the bill, as well as be able to give responses to the questions posed by the honorable members. That, honorable members, brings us to the end of our program, remaining with the minutes, which we will need to dispense of the 29th of November 2022. Honorable Minister and the officials of the department, you may be excused for those that want to leave the committee to proceed with these other matters. But we thank you for having availed yourselves for this meeting, and we will see you on Tuesday. Do have a wonderful weekend ahead. Honorable members, can I request of the can we request the honorable members that the Secretariat flight the minutes of the 29th of November 2022. There it is, honorable members, on page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Thank you, honorable members. These are the minutes of the 29th of November 2022. Can we have a mover for the adoption of the minutes?
Chair, Honorable Mahlo is here to move for the adoption of the minutes of the 2nd of November. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mahlo moves for the adoption of the minutes. And we have a second, honorable members.
Chair, I move to second the minutes as true reflection of what was discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndade Masipa. Seconds the adoption of the minutes of the 29th of November 2022. Honorable members, are there any matters arising? Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Thank you, honorable members. With no matters arising, the minutes of the 29th of November 2022 have been duly adopted. That brings us to an end of our meeting. Yes, Honorable Ndate Masipa.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, man, that I'm coming. I'm coming back to the same matter that I at the beginning of this meeting. I know that it's not really a matter arising from the minutes, but I think, Chair, it's very important that we really talk about this. You know, it is my opinion that we definitely need to relook at our program, to really afford ourselves an opportunity to reflect on the goings that are happening in agriculture. And really simply to really move with the project, the program as it is now, I think is unfair on the job that we are doing as legislators, members of parliament, let me put it this way. Because really, Chair, I think that we have got a crisis in our hands. Animal disease is a real crisis at the moment in terms of the availability for vaccines. African horse disease, vaccines are not available. And we have seen reports that talks about the FMD, that cases that have been opened have not been closed. And we do not know where we stand as a country. And as I'm talking now, I think Saudi Arabia is also relooking at their arrangement with South Africa with regards to export of meat into that country, which we were able to export. We had the opportunity there. So really, it is my really plea, Chair, that we consider really relooking at our programs. And I think you have got in the program that we will have a session. I cannot remember when is that going to be, but I think we need to have real strategies around how we're going to really go going forward. I know this bill of the one that we dealt with was very important because there is a High Court judgment that came, and it's on us to make sure that the bill is passed. But I think we definitely need to relook and find the new strategies as to how we're going to really be holding the department to account on many matters. The CPAs are just not working. So there are many issues, but I think we definitely, Chair, need to relook at our strategies going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ndate Masipa. As you have seen, we have circulated the program that was sent to the National Assembly and to the Speaker, and as therefore through the Office of the Chair of Chairs, the program has been approved. But with that also said, I have engaged with honorable members that have taken opportunity to come and speak to me directly as the chair to say that we have a slot on Fridays to be able to utilize for matters that are of urgency, as we do need to deal with legislation which we are trying to dispense of during this sixth parliament as tenure. We will often have the matters that are urgent and which will pop up from now and again. And I've requested from the Secretariat to constantly be looking at having these issues slotted in on Fridays. We have a management committee that is capable in ensuring that we are able to attend to urgent matters. You have also seen that with the interaction I've had with Honorable Ndate Matias, but also with your email, which I received yesterday afternoon, I've been able to request from the ministry that they present before the committee about the meeting which was held with the minister and the department with farmers and farmer formations in and around load shedding. I appreciate that honorable members are eager and wanting to address these issues of urgency, but we only have one day in a week, which is a Tuesday. We therefore on a Friday have to apply to be granted permission to have these meetings. And I can assure you that we will, as the management committee and as the chair of the portfolio committee, apply for sessions to be held on Fridays so we can be able to attend to these issues that are urgent. And we will therefore look into the matters, and I would like to request honorable members to engage with us and to give input, particularly when we issue a program. We await your input so that we can be able to effect that input before we send the program to the Parliament. But with that said, I will therefore await any issues that you feel of urgency that you would want us to attend to on Fridays. And we will utilize that time to engage on those matters. Honorable members, we have exhausted our program for the day and would like to thank you for availing yourselves and for ensuring that we continuously as a committee are able to have robust engagements with the department on the issues. We welcome your input and your questions of clarity and comments that you often put towards the presentations that are brought before the committee. We want to also thank the supporting staff of the portfolio committee, without whom we would never be able to have these meetings. That being the secretariat, the content advisors, our researchers, communications, and all that are able to help us navigate through these virtual meetings. I would like to thank our guests that continuously avail themselves on issues of interest to themselves. Please continuously support and participate in the meetings by joining the meetings, as this is the Parliament of the People and our meetings are open to the public. I also want to thank the respected members of the media who continuously look into our meetings and write various articles on the sessions that we have. So we thank you all and want to wish you well on a great weekend ahead. As DG said, they've been asked to don the colors of the women's cricket team. And we hope you will all do your best in giving your full support to our amazing cricket team. They are inspiration, not only to young women in South Africa, but to all of us as a nation, and they deserve our support as they progress in the World Cup. Thank you, honorable members. Have a wonderful weekend ahead and send our greetings and love to your loved ones. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.